It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life. Not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business, with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation. Call us at 305-541-2350. Follow us on Facebook at Jack Miller Down to Business or on Twitter at HJackMiller1.
Anyway, Todd, you ready to talk some commercial real estate?
I am always ready.
I'll tell you, I want to focus this week on commercial due diligence, and I'll tell you why. I see so many people get in trouble. They buy commercial property. They don't do the correct due diligence, and they just get their head handed to them. I got a call, and I'll tell you a quick story, and this is kind of why I want to talk about it. I get a call the other day from a potential client. She's in her mid-60s. Her husband passed away, left her some money. She bought a industrial property. She put down $2.5 million. She got a CMBS loan on it. There's a tenant in there. She thought they were paying perfect. It's a pretty big rent. The rent's, I think, 20, 30 grand a month. And she found out the tenant hadn't paid rent for 6 months.
Wow.
I'll fast forward. The property's now in foreclosure, and she's in deep doo-doo for it.
I imagine so.
And when I started to get into it, I realized that nobody did the proper due diligence.
Including the lender, obviously.
The lender is a national CMBS lender. You think the lender would have done the right due diligence. The lender didn't do it. The lawyer didn't do it. Everyone just assumed that it's doing it. Everyone's walking away now. So I really am so frustrated, and I see this all the time. So, Todd, I want to focus on due diligence, and I know this is really one of your expertise and one of the services you provide.
It is.
But it seems a couple, I broke due diligence down into a few things, and then let's talk about it. But a couple general rules I have, and you may disagree, and it could be respectfully disagree. My first rule is don't depend on your professionals to do it. And I believe this. If you're the buyer and you're investing your money and you're signing on the hook, you need professionals who know what they're doing, but you have to involve yourself in it. If not, if someone makes a mistake, the professionals all get paid at closing. They're motivated by closing. As soon as closing's over, not that they don't care, but some of them don't care. So you need to really wrap your hand around it. And if you don't have the time to wrap your hand around your hands and head around it, you shouldn't do it. The second thing is, again, be involved. Well, that's sort of the same thing. Just be involved in general in it. I think it's critical. But, Todd, what kind of due diligence do you recommend when you're buying a commercial property?
I mean, there are a number of things, but, it all starts with the leases and the income. 99% of the time, what we are selling is income. We're selling yield. And so our buyers need to validate that income or yield is actually coming in. And there are ways that we do that ahead of time. We get out ahead of it, for both the seller and the buyer in a transaction to prevent a situation just like your potential client experienced. But, I mean, we get down to the nitty-gritty. We get the leases. It's a must. You abstract the leases yourself. You compare the leases to the rent roll if there are multiple tenants and make sure everything is as it's purported to be. And then you get deposits or bank statements, and you get them for as long a period of time as you can. What you're looking for there is, that the monthly income is actually going into the bank and being received each month, that it's not being paid late, and that there aren't any trends of non-payment. And by trends, I mean, you're looking for something where it's like more than 1 month at a time, 2 months, 3 months, up to 6 months, like you mentioned, that there had been non-payment. There are various forms of income that you get, even from one tenant. So you need to verify that you're getting payment for everything that the tenant is on the hook for. So not just their base rent, but also their operating expenses or their share thereof, which, is their payment of, whatever their pro rata share of taxes, janitorial, management fees, electricity, and whatever else. those tenants are responsible for. And then anything else that a tenant is supposed to be paying. Maybe they pay for their parking spaces. Maybe they pay for, separate,
So you have to do a full audit on the file.
Correct.
First of all, I want to make this offer to everyone. A few years ago, we came up internally a due diligence checklist and items needed by the seller. As well, I wrote an article on due diligence, and I wrote another article called Hidden Treasures in Commercial Deals. If anyone sends me an email at jackmiller@Gelt Financial, I'll be more than glad to send it to them. But what this list is literally a 23-point list of things you should check on. And it breaks down into really three areas. One is outside reports, and an outside report would be an environmental, a title, building inspection. You don't want to buy a building and have a problem with the roof or something after. Zoning reports. I was involved with a property I've been involved with plenty of properties that aren't zoned properly. Sometimes there's two tenants in there and it's only zoned for one tenant. So there's what I call the outside reports, breaks down into one group. The second part is the internal stuff that the landlord gives you. That would be the stuff Todd's talking about: current leases, tax returns, CAM audits, things like that.
Service contracts.
All that stuff.
I mean, everything. You need to look at a lot of stuff. Service contracts are big, by the way. Sometimes if you're buying a property that's been in existence for, let's say 10 years or more, they could have hired a company to do elevators or window cleaning or janitorial, and every year that company could charge maybe, CPI increase over last time. And by the time you come around to buying this, that service company might be, 10 or 20% above market rate on what they're charging. All
that stuff. You have to check out every detail, and don't assume that the seller, no matter how big they are, is telling you the truth. In fact, whatever. I know someone who was working on a very big deal that closed a couple weeks ago. It was like a $23 or $26 million deal. They were buying a property from one of the biggest REITs in the country, and the REIT did not disclose some certain information that came out through due diligence, which wound up costing about $1 million.
Wow.
Had to do some leaks and things like that. So don't assume that the seller is going to give you all the information. So the first area, again, is things outside reports. The second area is things you get from the owner, and you have to verify everything. And the third area is what I call snooping around. Go to the property. I would go in, if it's a retail, talk to the tenant, see how the tenant's doing, because the owner's not going to tell you that the tenant's struggling and he may be out of there. So by kind of snooping around, talking to neighbors, you can learn a lot. And there's, again, big list of stuff that you can come up with to go over that. But I would spend a ton of time on due diligence. And too often, frankly, everyone's putting pressure on you to close, and they're trying to get you to waive the due diligence items instead of focusing on the due diligence items.
That's right.
So what else, Todd? What else do you guys do in due diligence?
Well, one of the things that we do is we make sure that we get all of the things that you just mentioned from our clients, the sellers, up front. We have them so that, when we go to market, we already understand the property. We make sure and already validate that the income is as the seller is purporting it when we go out to market. And we make sure that we have the due diligence items in hand already so that when buyers ask for certain things, we are ready either to answer questions or to provide the information once we go under contract immediately, because, usually the due diligence period begins as soon as the effective date of a contract. So, your clock is ticking. Let's say you have 21 days or 30 days, which is standard, to do something, that your clock is ticking as soon as the contract is signed. So we make sure that people get it on day one, because if you don't get it on day one, then there's going to be delays in moving a deal forward.
There's also in due diligence, remember, you're not only looking for bad stuff, you're certainly looking for bad stuff, but sometimes good stuff comes out of it. In a ton of deals that we see, for example, the common area maintenance, the landlord is not collecting the full amount, and they're leaving a lot of money off the table. And
we see it all the time. People aren't collecting the CAM payments, which is the common area maintenance. People aren't collecting for increases in lease payments dating back last year, dating back 10 years sometimes. I mean, sometimes landlords just on a handshake agreement with tenants don't raise the rent like they could in a lease because, times were hard or whatever, and then they never get around to doing it. But a new owner could come in and get those
I agree.
tenants to
Todd,
pay.
we got to take a commercial. I'll be back in a minute. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The show's over. And we have 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes. A couple more things on due diligence. I'll rush through them. A couple other things. One is I learned a valuable lesson. Make sure you don't take the size for granted. If the lease says a property is, I'm making up a number, 5,000 square feet, don't take that for granted because quite often it's not 5,000 square feet. So it could be higher. It could be lower. You could measure it. But you have to really nail it down to that level of
scrutiny.
If not, you're going to be in trouble. And I see this all the time in my financial restructuring practice. So I would encourage everyone to spend a lot of time, double check everything in your due diligence. Don't trust anybody. So with that, I want to thank everyone. Wanda, I'm sorry we didn't get to pal around and talk to you today. I really have a lot to talk. I want to talk about Donald Trump next week.
That's fine.
Nice.
Todd,
Yeah,
Todd,
I've missed you guys the last couple of weeks. It's good to be back in studio. Again, my name's Todd Cohen. If you need to call me for any commercial real estate questions or needs, 786-522-7021. Again, 786-522-7021. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, Jack.
Todd, my pleasure. My lovely wife, Judy, you didn't text me during the show and tell me I'm doing anything wrong, but you texted me before and told me you love me, so that's what matters. Okay, everyone. Thank you and have a great day.